Today, I'll show you how to choose measurables, even if you call them KPIs, and then put them on a scorecard in a simple way that will focus your entire team and drive results fast. By the end of this video, you'll have a scorecard that helps you move the needle, keeps everyone focused, aligned, and it gives all of you a clear picture of the health of your business. Stick around until the end. We've got a free bonus for you. There's a set of worksheets that you can download to follow along, so just click the link in the description to get those. I've worked closely with founders who have scaled quickly from 0 to 30 million. Founders who've scaled SaaS companies very quickly to $45 million exits. There's a pattern that I've gotten to see over and over with how these clients manage things versus how everyone else does. And I want to make sure I share those with you so you can be successful. The challenges that I see, and I hear from founders and CEOs who are struggling, my team doesn't get it. Things aren't getting done unless I drive things. I can't get away. We have trouble setting our goals, whether they're rocks or objectives and key results. We keep trying to implement this, and you get a lot of fuzzy coaching out there with all these platitudes and all these things that are very difficult to follow and make sense of. And a lot of times a real problem. The root cause isn't that you need to go get an OKR coach, a business coach, a new business operating system. A lot of times the root cause is that you don't have clarity on the numbers that represent business health, and you don't have a set of numbers that push your teams to do the right things and enable them to do the right things and empower them to do the right things. And all we really want is to know that our team gets it. They're executing consistently on the right things. We're able to get away, take a vacation, and not have to stress about not being at work or even checking in. And we want to be able to make data-driven decisions where we're not having to worship at the cult of whatever business operating system or framework is popular today. We really just want to know our business is operating on strong fundamentals. The mistakes that I see people make is they just avoid the whole scorecard process because they've gotten so turned off by the different gurus that are out there, and everybody's got a system. This guy's using a scorecard. This guy's using a bowler. This guy's using a dashboard. This guy has a spreadsheet he wants you to maintain. I mean, there's just things pulling us in all these different directions so that you can be like, well, what do we even need here? The other problem I see is people will go ahead and jump in and get a scorecard in place, and then they haven't set it up right, and they're exhausting so much energy trying to get their team to buy in, and then they realize it's not set up right, and then it just feels like they've just burned a ton of trust in the emotional bank account, and they start having other issues, so they kind of get away from it. Or if it is set up, they're only looking at it once a month, maybe quarterly. They're not really using it to drive behavior. And because of that, you can have the numbers, but they're so far away from the actual behaviors that people aren't actually using the numbers in a way that gets you the benefit. And finally, if the team doesn't understand how the numbers fit together to get you results and how the numbers really impact those results, you're going to be a little bit like a sports team where you're having the practices and you're putting in all these brilliant strategies that work, but your team isn't developing the skill set or applying the skill set they need to actually get things done. Another mistake I see is we get so into the system or the guru that we're calling the numbers different names and then arguing about like the existentials. Well, is it a measurable? Is it a KPI? Is it a metric? Are we getting into business analytics? And the idea here is just to have numbers that we can give every individual on our team to own. You can do that. It's doable. It's always doable. There's always a way to do it if you don't get lost in all the distractions and side conversations around all the nuances that go into tracking numbers in a business. So we're going to tackle all of those things right now. We're going to cut to the heart of them. And whether you're using a business operating system like the entrepreneurial operating system, whether you're using another metaphor, the great game of business, or just following a coach that you really like who's got their own system, this is going to help you get to the fundamentals in a way that you will be able to test things for yourself and see things for yourself and tweak them. I was talking to one of my clients and really good friends. Will Bunker built what's now Match.com with his team. Their company just trounced everybody else, grew by leaps and bounds, and then actually outmaneuvered all the big companies with a ton of money to be acquired and get the Match.com name put on their profitable company. They were having profitable growth when they sold for more than 40 million. And one of Will's big secrets that he shared with me very early on was he gave everybody the numbers. He showed them how customers moved through the business and what the numbers were that let them see how customers moved through the business. And then every single person on the team had a number that they owned. And you'll see this theme come up again and again. It's why EOS has so much success teaching people how to use scorecards with what they call measurables. It's why so many sales teams are so focused on activity numbers. And they're doing them the same way Will did, the same way a great sports team where you have a shooter, like whether you're Steph Curry or Luka Doncic or any other great player or LeBron James, you're in the gym making a certain number of shots every single day. That's a leading indicator you're going to use to make sure that at game time, your shot percentage, your scoring is high enough. Because if your scoring percentage is high enough, you've got a better chance of winning the ball game. You want a set of measurements you can use to ensure that you're getting the right level of effort at the right time and you're staying on track to win the game. So just like a basketball team is going to have breaks each quarter, and the coach may call a set of timeouts on a rhythm in between just to make sure everyone trues back up to what they're trying to do. You need a way to do that in your business. And it needs to be as objective as the basketball game is. So where the basketball game, you can see the ball going into the basket, you can see what the score is, you can see several other indicators that teams use to manage how they're moving through the game. In business, those things can be more abstract, they can be more debatable. So we've got to create a system that's very, very simple that we can use just as consistently to make sure we're hitting our fundamentals. And those fundamentals are coming together to really contribute to our results. So how do we do that? Before we dive in, I want to make sure you understand these principles. So if you look at something I'm doing and it doesn't quite fit how you're thinking about it, you've got the tools you need to keep going and build on this. So our system for scoring the business, for coming up with measurables, a scorecard, KPIs, whatever language we use, there are some principles we cannot get away from. The first is we've got to do things in a simple way, because if it's not simple, people won't remember it. And if they won't remember it, there's no way for them to do it. The next thing we have to make sure that we're doing is we have to paint a good picture of the business through these numbers. Now, every aspect of the business isn't measurable. You can't over-index on your measurables, but you do want to have a set of numbers that give you a very quick sense of how you're doing. If you don't have that, you're going to have to operate based on gut feel all the time, and gut feel is no way to run a business, right? You want to use the numbers to feed that gut feel so that you're making good decisions, but not have to rely on that just to figure out what the heck's going on. You're wasting all of your key insights and your ability to assess what's happening just on figuring out what's happening. We want to use these numbers to tell that story to you, and we want to use those numbers to make sure everyone understands how the business works. So we're creating the actual flow of the business through these numbers. So if you can do that, you've got something really powerful. We also need to make sure that this is a small enough set of numbers that we're not getting lost in measurement and business analytics. This is not about defining business analytics where you're slicing and dicing things to come up with new insights. This is about driving consistent wins day in and day out. You use business analytics when you want some strategic insight that's going to shift your strategy or your thinking. We're talking about having a scoreboard or a scorecard that you use to make sure people are driving toward the right results, saying no to everything but those results, and getting those results on a consistent basis. We also need to make sure the numbers we're coming up with can be used weekly, and they can be used weekly in a way that gives us a sense of how we're doing. If we're getting toward the end of the week and we need to ramp up our effort, we need to know that. If last week was low and we need to try to make up for it, we need to know that. That's what's going to allow us to create more predictable, profitable growth. So let's look at doing that step by step now. The first thing we want to do is actually map out what we call the journey from customer to cash. I want you guys to do it here in this worksheet. Don't pull up your favorite flowcharting tool because those flowcharting tools seduce you into complexity. I love my flowcharts. I mean, I was in management consulting for a while. I love me a good flowchart, but it's too easy to overthink it and overcomplicate it. So we're going to use 6 boxes. And if you really have to, you can print a copy of the page and do 10, but keep things at a high level and very simple. And we basically want to look at how people enter the engine that is our business, the machine, and what the different functional areas are that they go through. We're not going to map out all the details of how they move through each functional area. We just need this high level explanation of the business. So typically in the first box, marketing brings them in, right? There's an example. Now, we don't have to get into the whole customer awareness journey of how marketing's doing things. Your marketing team may do that when they map their process. But for the high level, we just want to say marketing is how we reach people. Sales, for example, would be how we convert them. Now, maybe customer success helps them get started. Maybe we have a delivery function or a development function or some function that delivers our good or service. So if you're a software company, that's going to be your product team, and for us, product team includes engineering. Some people like to break those out. I don't. I feel like engineers that don't understand product and customers build bad stuff. So we need whatever those flowchart steps are. Like you can have things broken out, whatever is important to you. This is your business. Fill those in. And then you're going to eventually get to your finance area, and that's where you're getting paid, and you're making sure you're getting paid. And that typically will go back to like customer success or your account team to make sure you're getting renewals or upsells or continued purchases, depending on your business model. But again, this is a very high level and it's very simple. Yes, you should include operations in here if you've got an operations function. And if you don't, I strongly recommend you get that because a strong operations function will keep things moving through this entire machine. Once you have that mapped out, you're going to use a simple test. Once you have that mapped out, use a very simple test. If grandma was asking you at the Thanksgiving table or some other friend who doesn't understand the ins and outs of your business, if they're asking you about your business, could you walk them through these 6 boxes to explain to them the basics of how your business works? If the answer is yes, you've got a good customer to cash journey. If the answer is no, you're probably overcomplicating it. I rarely see people oversimplify this, right? Usually, I guess I have seen a few salespeople where they ignore all the fulfillment and they just say, well, we just do our sales function. We get out there, we sell. But the bottom line is if you're not looking at these other functions, you're going to have to be selling with urgency. You're never going to get anywhere because you're not fulfilling with a high enough quality or in a way that will get you the repeat customers or the customer retention. So having this overview of your business is the first step in coming up with a good scorecard. And it's so simple that people ignore it and then they get lost in the sauce of this and that fancy scoreboarding tool. We always have our customers start here. Now that you have this step, it's great. We're going to go to the next sheet. And I want you to think through for each of these boxes, 2, maybe 3 numbers that you could watch on a weekly basis that would let you know things are going okay in that part of the machine. So if it's marketing, maybe it's inbound leads. Maybe it's people signing up for your mailing lists. Maybe it's people watched a video. Maybe it's you delivered a certain number of qualified leads to sales. And you can look at 2 specific things, inputs and outputs. Again, don't get too complicated here, but basically there are leading indicators. They're the things that I'm doing that will allow me to get to the results I need. And the results are typically what are called lagging indicators. A leading indicator says, if I do this thing, I believe I'm going to get a result. I can't say for sure, but I believe that if I'm a salesperson, for example, and I do a certain number of outbound calls, a certain number of opens in chat, a certain number of cold calls, a certain number of emails, a certain number of events, I believe that if I do those things, I'm going to get a certain number of qualified sales opportunities. I may not be able to scientifically correlate those 2 things, but it's my belief. So the things I described on the first part of that description are your leading indicators. And the results I get, which in this case for the sales team will just be sales, that's a lagging indicator essentially. If I got the sales, I'm looking backwards to see how it goes. But if it's a leading indicator, I'm trying to manage to it in order to get the result. right? So we'll fill in this chart now, and we've got our candidates for our scorecard. Once you have each box filled in, you've got a good set of candidates for your scorecard. What we want to think about for each one of these boxes is what are the top 3 lagging indicators of health of that area? And what are the top 3 leading indicators? So a lagging indicator means you can look backwards and see it. So in marketing, it'd be how many qualified leads did we deliver to sales? And leading would be what are the activities we did to try to produce those? And typically you want to make sure you're primarily looking at leading indicators when you're managing week to week. You also want to have a lagging indicator, but the leading indicators are what you're using to figure out where you need to ramp things up, where you need more activities. So go ahead and document those for each box and then run our little checklist. You make sure that it provides that meaningful indicator, and most of the indicators you have are leading indicators because we need them to push activity. The reason that we have the lagging indicators, the results, is basically so that we can check ourselves. Are we right about this? So then when we're looking at them, is it a number that can guide my goal setting and decision making? Is it a number that allows me to measure? Is it a number that lets me see what's most important to the business and to this function inside the business? Can it be delegated to one person? Or can we have multiple people with targets around that number? And finally, does it make it easy for me to know whether I need to ramp up my activity today, tomorrow, or by the end of the week in order to make sure that we're going to be on target? Now that you have those, I want you to prioritize each of these. Pick the top 3 in each area. Once you have that done, I want you to pick the top 2 in each area. And if you do this right, you should end up with 12, maybe 16 numbers that you're looking at. That is what you should have as your scorecard. You're looking at those numbers, and that's what you're using week in and week out. This goes into your weekly meeting rhythm. If you need help understanding how to do that, we've got another video on that. So check the link below or check out our video on weekly meeting rhythms and what to put in them. But you've now got a scorecard, and you'll sit with it. You'll use it for 3 to 6 weeks, and then you'll assess, is this the right number? And within 3 weeks, you'll usually know because you're either seeing the results or you're not seeing the results based on those numbers. Now, I talked about a free bonus. I'm going to get to that now. If you want help setting these things up, we provide group coaching and one-on-one coaching along with our software. If you need help, you can check the links below, look into our profitable growth program. If your business is below 5 million in revenue, if you're above that, our scale programs and our elite programs can be super helpful getting these behaviors deep in your organization very quickly. The success we have tends to be 80% deeper and 60% faster than most of the consulting frameworks that are out there because we're just giving you the way to make the change, drive the change, and get your team on the same page as quickly as possible. That said, I told you we have a free bonus, and we do. In the link below, you will find 34 sample measurables that you can use right away as is to plug in to your scorecard, or you can use them to evaluate what you would like to have in your scorecard or your scoreboard. Now, one thing I should say is we get lost in the visualizations here. Some people like a scoreboard. So what a scoreboard looks like is just what it says. You can see the score. You see the numbers. You might see a trend or a slight trend line below them, but it's basically showing you where you are now. And the trailing information it gives you is small so that you can keep the numbers right there in front of you. The scorecard view, which is essentially a bowler, is another name for this if you were to Google and go on the interwebs to look these up. The scorecards and the bowlers basically are sports metaphors with bowling, and bowling for the bowler and golf for the scorecard. In those metaphors, you have frames just like you would in the sport. So in golf, each hole is its own frame and you're counting the number of strokes. In bowling, each time you get a turn or each set of 2 turns, you're counting the number of pins you knock over, and that creates your frame. In business, we're going to use each week as a frame. Each week is a rep for us, and that's how we're going to break these things up. Now, whatever approach you use, whether you want a scorecard, a scoreboard, a bowler, these need to be the centerpiece of all of your conversations. Whatever you do, whatever system you use, whether you're using a business operating system, whether you're in the cult of one or another guru. However you're doing it, whatever gets it done is fine. But please make sure that you're clear about the numbers that matter for your business, and you're helping everybody on your team understand the numbers that they can affect and how those numbers fit together to contribute to the greater good. That's going to give you a far more cohesive team. It's going to give you focus, and it's going to help you grow profitably. If you want help, we've got programs that can help you. Our software can for sure walk you through a lot of this. So make sure that if you're looking for help, you keep us in mind. But whoever you use, make sure you get out there and find a system and some guidance that works for you. We'll see you next time.